stay with the story and delve a little deeper. Our television screens have been dominated for the past 2 days by a court case around a matter of common assault. Why, with a country that needs to bring rapists and murderers to trial, are we seemingly wasting time and taxpayers' money on bringing common assault cases to trial? Let's discuss this now with legal expert Tyrone Maseko. Good afternoon, Tyrone. Thanks very much for joining us. You know, I look at this and I go, okay, assault is not acceptable. It's absolutely not okay. But it's not. It's actually looking like a bit of a shoving match in some of these cases. And I just wonder why these matters are coming to trial when surely our courts should be filled with people who are accused of much more serious crimes.
Hi, Sally. Well, you know, Sally, one's got to be careful is that at the end of the day, common assault is an offense in our law. And there's a good reason why it is an offense in our law, because people are not meant to take the law into their own hands. The idea is that, you know, if a wrong is done unto you, and one that amounts to a crime should be reported to the police, and the state should then deal with the matter, lest you have people take the law into their hands. Now, you know, I understand where the question is coming from, but the difficulty is that the prosecution, the state is not in a position to adjudicate matters. Theirs is to take complaints, and where they believe and where there are facts that support the crime, is to refer that to the court, for the court to deal with, and where parties then found guilty to then apportion the appropriate sentence. So the state is really not in a position to be dilly-dallying and deciding which way. But having said that, there is a process where matters can be mediated.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there is not a decision that the state makes. If the parties themselves, the complainant and the accused, are willing to come together and resolve their matters amicably, the state is quite happy to facilitate that, especially where you don't have, where it's not a serious case like assault GBH or intention to do grievous bodily harm. Yeah.
This is the thing, you know, it looks to me, and it costs a lot of money to go to trial. You're paying lawyers, there's also the waste of time, and we have better things in many ways to be spending our time on. And there are other ways of solving these problems. You can pay an admission of guilt fine, you can resolve it in a different way. The fact that these matters are coming to trial around the EFF, do you think that this indicates that we're looking at a polarizing situation? Because after all, things tend to end up in court if you can't mediate and negotiate a settlement. Am I right?
Well, you're right in the sense that, you know, what's interesting about this is that all parties to a complaint and a criminal complaint, particularly cases of assault, common assault, as I've alluded to before, is that parties can come together and make a decision to resolve the matter between themselves where it's not that serious, but the state cannot compel them. But what is interesting for me is as a matter of policy, is it desirable to allow instances of assault to occur in our society where parties know that they're actually going to get away with it because the court does not regard it as a serious offense? And the difficulty is that when you're dealing with common assault, someone can punch you in the face. That is common assault. And when someone's punched you in the face, you're going to be very, very, very aggrieved. And sometimes you've got to make a decision as to whether you're going to retaliate or not. And prudence might suggest, well, let me not take the law into well, you can defend yourself and you could have a defense in law. But when some people decide, well, I'm not going to react, I'm not going to do anything about it, I'm actually going to let the law deal with this. And then you expect that there should be repercussions. One, so that other people are deterred from taking the same action. So while I appreciate the question, but one's got to be very careful as a matter of policy in not prosecuting these matters. You have to prosecute so the rest of society takes leave and realizes that this is treated seriously, and then you lessen the propensity to have this type of offenses.
As a ballpark figure, how much does a day in court cost?
Depends who the parties involved are. Very often when you've got common assault cases, you know, accused can be represented by the state, and the state lawyers are there on a daily basis, so the cost is fixed in that sense. But this particular one is rather different because you've got parties who can actually afford to take this matter further. You've got interested parties like the Afri Forum will fund, well, not the prosecution, but they've got a watching brief which suggests that the complainant, you know, is being supported in this instance. But more interesting is that the accused are represented by senior counsel, and that doesn't happen a lot. particularly in a magistrate court matter, in a district matter. It's not something that you see often.
Very quickly, I have to ask you about what goes on outside court, because what we're seeing is that the EFF is essentially using it as a rallying platform and saying some quite problematic things. They've accused 702 of being a racist station. They're speaking about expired 702 journalism, this, that and the other. This is not the sort of thing that is very becoming outside a court case. Equally, we're not seeing any social distancing of many, many supporters gathered there. Is that something the court just simply has to accept as part of the process?
Well, as I understand it, the court has given EFF permission to be present, or EFF supporters, and I stand corrected, but as I understand it from my discussions with parties involved, that the court has given permission for these demonstrations. The difficulty with it is that one doesn't know what happens behind the scenes, and also you've got a whole lot of people there, individuals who ultimately, some might be law-abiding, others are going to take the law into their hands or skate the thin line between what is legal and not. And that is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, you've got adults, and people have to behave, and people have to abide by the law. But how do you enforce that where people are not breaking the law as well, but they're acting in a manner which is unbecoming and morally which is reprehensible, but not quite amounting to an offense which they can be charged for? And that's a difficulty we have to grapple with in our societies. How do we deal with this behavior?
Well, thank you very much for your views this evening, legal expert Tyrone Maseko.